Well, hello from Zomax Racing. First of all, I want to thank you for buying one of my 124 scale Formula Fords. This thing kind of grew out of a 132nd scale version that people were racing here, and I thought, well, let's make a bigger one to run on my track that's a little bit faster. So I'm going to show you what you do to get started and get this thing rolling. So here's two examples of obviously cars that are finished and that we've been running, have a good time with them. And here's the latest one that I just got in the mail today. You can see down inside we've got a motor pod that's kind of dangling there. You've got two guide flag holders in case one of them should break at some point. You got another one, and your driver's down there. So let's go ahead and just nip these stringers off by doing the part this way. It's a lot cheaper with all these parts stuck up inside there. You can see now there's an area there that fits the digital 132 Carrera chip if you want to run this car on a digital track. Again, some local guys were asking for that, so I made the model so it would fit that digital chip. Stringer back here. Gonna knock that off. And there's our motor pod. I've designed this motor pod for a 1mm offset. Gears from Slotted work beautifully in it. It's designed to use either ball bearings or bushings, and it's designed for an orange end bell. There are two extra holes here. That's for the regular slotted inline motor pod. Either one will work. I wanted a pod that I could put ball bearings in, so that's why I just said, hey, I'm going to make my own pod, and but left the holes for the slotted pod. We'll just get this driver out. Driver has a little Hans device on there, safety first, right? So there's all your parts. Now that we've got everything cut out of the body, let's just go over a few things here. All the holes in these parts are purposely made undersized. The tolerance on the 3D printing is plus or minus 0.15 millimeters. So my feeling is I want the holes a little bit on the small side so that you can drill them out to the size you want for whatever screws you're using. For my motor pod, I use a 256 button head screw. I like those because obviously you can see it's hanging on my driver, and I can put them in, take them out with the same tool I use to put my tires on and off. So I drill out this hole with a 1/16 drill bit, and that's a good size to make threads. These two holes get drilled out to 1/16, and the hole for the guide gets drilled out to 1/16. Then we want a clearance hole. I drilled this out to 3/32, so there's a little float between the screw and the body. I drilled these two out with 3/32 again, so I get a little bit more float between the screw and the motor pod. And for where the guide flag goes, I drill that out just so I got clearance for the screw. Then for the bushings, drill those out with a 3/16 drill bit. You don't have to go in there very deep, but you'll need to probably put that in your drill motor. And then the other thing you just need to look at is sometimes the bodies come with the powdered plastic still in the front axle hole, and you just got to kind of clean that out. This one didn't have any any debris in there, but the powdered plastic is kind of like a talcum powder, and sometimes there'll be a little bit in there. You want to blow that out real well. Normally, the next thing I do is I scrub everything with dishwashing liquid and a toothbrush, get it all clean, and then once it's dry, I use this SEM high build primer. It's a kind of a thick primer. I put 2-3 coats, sometimes 4 coats, and then when I'm all done, I lightly sand it. And I've been using Tamiya primer, or I'm sorry, Tamiya paint, and that's what, obviously this is what that blue one was painted with. After I put the decals on, I throw 1 coat of clear. I like using this pearl because it gives a little metal flake effect. So we'll talk a little bit about where weight goes. You can see this one has a digital chip in it. Here's your guide flag holder and your motor pod. So this car has weight up under here, up under here. There's weight under here, and there's weight in the nose. You can see that there's a nice little bit of float between the body and the motor pod. Motor pod has a little spherical bump in here, and on the underside right here is a little detent for that little bump, just to try to help things roll a little bit better. So this front area has a rib up here so that you can put, I usually put lead shot in there and then epoxy to fill it up. So you can see that these are just filled right over with the epoxy. So once you got all the weight glued in, you want to use a good epoxy. This plastic is a nylon, kind of like a cutting board. It's very slippery. So the sticky, two-sided sticky tape that's on some of the leads that you buy, lead strips that you buy, that won't stick real well to these bodies. So you can use that to hold it in place while you put some epoxy on it, and then it'll stay there forever. I've got 2 holes in the back of the motor pod so you can screw your motor in. You'll have to drill those out to the diameter that you want as well. This white one's going to go off to get painted, and then it'll be ready to race. Well, I hope you enjoy your car, and thanks for buying.